Board of Zoning Appeals hereby called to order. The board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code and by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Steve Haber.
Here.
Fred Hayes.
Here.
Rick Overschmidt.
Here.
Brian Johnson.
Here.
Brian Ellis.
Here.
And then Brian Sanders. And he's here for another thing.
Mr. Sanders is also here tonight. Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that the meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on television. First, I'll outline the procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by the staff. Then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chairman. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and/or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chair. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium after being recognized, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, and any affiliation with the case. The testimony is given to the board only. No comments or questions are directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. Now, will all persons who may give testimony this evening please stand, raise your right hand, and swear or affirm? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
No, you guys do have the option of adjusting it since Brian Sanders is here, and going ahead and journalizing the case from last month first if you'd like to, or you can leave it at the end of the agenda.
Okay, we'll just keep it where it's scheduled. Thanks, Brian. Motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from February 6th, 2014. We received those from Ms. Hodson, and then she made some revisions to those also. Did anybody else have any comments or corrections they'd like to share on that they haven't shared with staff already? Okay. There not being any further changes, is there a motion to approve the minutes from February 6th?
So moved. Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Can we just do all in favor of that, or do you want to? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I abstain since I was not here.
Okay, and the record will note Mr. Hayes had to abstain. He wasn't here that night. All right, so we will jump into the cases for tonight. We have one case, consideration of case 3-2014, submitted by Antonio and Gloria Capatillo. They're the property owners at 7906 Meadow Creek Drive. Ms. Hodson?
Yes, this property is zoned A-2 residence, which is one of our single-family designations. The variance request tonight is to allow a 21 by 24-foot addition to be located a distance of 6 feet 6 inches from the side yard setback, where the required distance is 10 feet. Here we have a location map of the subject property. The site is approximately 0.32 acres and has 80 feet of frontage on Meadow Creek Drive. It is relatively flat, though there is a decrease in grade from the east to the west. The existing use is a single-family home. The home was constructed in 1986, and an above-ground pool was added in 2000. That you can see from a more current aerial photo that it is no longer there. The applicant is proposing to construct a 21-foot by 24-foot addition onto the rear of the home, matching the existing side yard setback of the home in place of an existing deck. We've got a proposed site plan of that. as well as elevation drawings. This would be looking at the addition from the adjacent property, and here is looking at the addition from the rear of the property, as well as photos of those same locations. Staff finds that the variance is not substantial. The setback will remain the same for the addition as the existing residence and deck. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The addition will not encroach any further into the side yard than the existing structures. The variance will not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services, and the property owner's predicament cannot be feasibly obviated by some method other than a variance. In order to attach the addition to the existing family room and maintain a cohesive outside appearance, the addition will need to match the existing setback.
Okay, are there any questions for staff at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Yes.
Ellison, the construction of this residence was done before the zoning resolution?
Yes, this was prior to the township having its own zoning resolution and was handled by the county.
And that's why it doesn't meet the basic
Correct.
setback existing? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Same question I have.
Same question. Okay. We'd like to invite the applicant to come up and present your case. You can go to that podium there if you wish. Thank you. Just identify your name and address, please.
My name is Tony Cabatillo. I live in 7906 Meadow Creek Drive, and I don't know what to say other than everything that was read on the regarding the proposed addition to the house is going to be right in line with the existing structure, and it's not going to encroach any more than the current deck does at this time. We're going to try to keep it as low as possible, and it's going to be, the addition will be the same style, if you will, brick, and it's probably all going to be brick. I don't see any siding being added into it. I don't want to have to try to match the siding, but it'll just be brick. And I don't know what else. I've never done this before, so, I mean, if there's, I'm sure if you have
Doing
questions, you
just
can
fine.
ask them.
Doing
Yeah.
just fine.
All right.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Capatillo?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. Sir, have you talked with your next-door neighbor, especially the one that is on the affected side?
Yes, my wife has spoken to them, and I don't think there's any objection to the addition at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Mr. Oberst?
Just following up, and this is really a question for staff. We didn't receive any other.
No, we had a few people drop by and look at the plans, but no concerns about them at all.
Thank you.
Are you going to go farther into the yard? Is that what, the 8 to 10 feet?
The 24 feet actually will be going west of the current deck. If it's only going to be, I think it's another 4 feet past that. So it's not that much farther west. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Is there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What we'll do now is we close the public portion of the meeting, so we won't take any further testimony. And then we will go into deliberation, since you're the only case. Comments from the board on this case?
Yes, if I might. I know Mr. Ravignani, who's the architect. Tony worked for me for a number of years. It's been probably 10 years or so that he and I have worked together, and it's been since 2008 since I left the dark side of architecture. And So I don't have a problem with, I want to let the board know that I don't think I have a problem with telling you how I feel about this. I am in agreement with the variance for a number of reasons, and I think, first off, they are matching the existing setback. They aren't making it worse, but they are matching the existing setback. Allison, if you could pull up the rear elevation. I think if you're looking at the addition here, to keep it the same dimension, which is the 21 feet, means to shift it over to the left 3.5 feet or whatnot, encroaching onto the projecting bay window. I mean, I think there's some hardship, there's some constraints here on the existing structure. In addition, and I reflect upon what Mr. Hayes said here, is that it seems like these houses have been, as we looked at, and if you could pull up the site plan with the property, go one more. All these houses, if you looked at the street, are all shoved to the left, or I think that's to the south, so to speak. So what I would not want to do would be to exacerbate a situation where houses were close together and we're continuing to encroach upon small side yards, but as you look to the house to the south, it's also moved to the south side of the property. So I don't think we're, again, I don't think we're really making a situation worse since the neighbor's house is to the south side of their property. So based on those criteria, and I think what staff said is, it seems like a reasonable means to grant the variance.
Thanks, Mr. Haber. Further comments?
I would just note that I think the comprehensive plan for the township encourages the continued revitalization of residences, and we have a limited amount of new space, and so I think it's consistent to allow people to expand and improve their homes, and we're not taking it any closer than the existing side yard.
And the one observation I have on it, looking at the aerial site plan and this aerial layout, is it's not overbuilding for that lot or that area. It seems to fit in nicely, and they are maintaining the existing side yard, so it seems to be a good fit, and there does seem to be some reasonable hardships that would be avoided, in particular with the construction if it was forced to be shifted over there. So, somebody like to make a motion on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In regards case number 3-2014 BZA, I move that we grant a variance allowing a 21-foot by 24-foot addition to be located a distance of 6 feet 6 inches from the side yard setback, where the required distance is 10 feet per section 72.2 of the zoning resolution, based on the following. Number one, that the variance is not substantial, and we've had testimony to staff to that. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment. We've talked about the architecture, the design of the addition being sympathetic and in agreement with the existing house. It's not going to adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament cannot easily be obviated through another method, and as I discussed before, moving the addition to the north so that it conformed to the side yard setback would mean that it would encroach upon the existing bow window, so I believe there is an issue of hardship should we require the setback to be maintained. We talked about the comprehensive plan and that improvements to residences within the area is in concert with the comprehensive plan, and such that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice would be done by granting the variance. If I have not already said that the proposal is not encroaching any more into the existing side yard, as that is in alignment with the existing house, which was grandfathered prior to the establishment of the zoning regulations. And finally, that construction be commenced within 1 year and completed within 2. Thank you, thank you. And in substantial conformance with the drawings, sheet number A-1.0, which we received dated February 14th, 2014.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Steve Hayward,
Aye.
Fred Hayes,
Aye.
Rick Obersmith.
Aye.
Brian Johnson,
Aye.
Brian Ellis.
Aye. Okay,
Very nicely done, sir.
Thank you.
that's what we call a straw vote, and then later on this evening, we will put that in a resolution form, I believe, is the plan, and then you can get with Allison to get your permits going on that, okay?
I'll be
Thank
hitting
you
you
very
tomorrow
much.
morning.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, so let's move down now to the journalization of the cases. Shall we start with our one from last month? Case number, yes, sir.
Have to switch.
Okay, yes, thanks, Mr. Hayes. Mr. Sanders, you want to come up for this one, please?
You guys,
Mr. Hayes is
you're
going to...
welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
Mr. Hayes was not here, so he's going to sit this one out. Mr. Sanders will join us. So we received from the staff in our packet a proposed resolution for case 24-2013 BZA. Donna Jean Childs was the applicant. Does anybody have any comments on this resolution? I had a chance to read through it, and I don't have any comment on it.
And Gary Powell has reviewed this.
Our counsel for the BZA, Gary Powell, also has reviewed this.
I had one comment in the third paragraph in the item number 3. It looked like there was a typo about views, existing views.
Where it says view sheds.
View sheds.
That's like a planner's word, isn't
It
it,
is.
Allison?
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
We like to make up new things.
You know, you could have got away with it if you told me, yeah, that's what it was.
You would have said, okay.
We can just make it view.
I didn't even catch it.
Should we change that to view?
What do they call that when two words get combined into one? There's a word for that. Confusion.
Yeah, that's one word. So I did have a couple thoughts on this, and curious to get the board's, I guess, feedback. So if you remember, this case initially started in December, and they came to us, and we just asked the applicant to go back and provide additional details. I don't think anybody was significantly or firmly against the resolution at that time. The applicant came back, I guess it was just last month, and decided not to provide additional details. And that's really the issue I had with the case, is the fact that I felt like we were almost giving him a blank check to go do whatever he wanted in terms of putting the camper in the front yard. He didn't give the exact parameters. The landscaping was suspect. The type of material he mentioned in discussions, but it changed over time. So that was my significant issue. So curious as to your feedback. When I read this, we stated pretty strongly the variance is substantial. This would drastically alter, neighborhood would be substantially altered. My only thought was, if the applicant comes back with detailed plans that we're comfortable with, where the camper would be sitting, I would be open to hearing that again. So I wonder if it doesn't make sense, and so I'd sort of just penciled in, for example, on item number 2, the variance is, and I guess my concern is if we get ourselves in trouble by using this language, so that's why I invite some feedback, please. The variance is potentially substantial. Allowing the storage of a camper within this area, take out drastically, and say could alter the use. The essential character of the neighborhood could be substantially altered. Adjoining properties would suffer, or could suffer a substantial. And again, there's another would down here where the variance could affect the existing views. The reality is, I just think he was ambiguous about what he wanted to do. And that's the reason we denied it. And we'd given him one chance to go back, draw up his plans, and come back, and he chose not to. Is that fair, or am I being too literal?
Well, I think you're being had some very good observations about the procedural challenges we're faced with this case, because if you do look at our bylaws, it's within the board's authority to place conditions or consider conditions that a variance might be substantial, but if with those conditions it becomes not substantial.
That's a good point.
So the conditions and this board's authority to impose conditions are important. So when we had the discussion, the flavor of the board, at least was my perception, was that it was, these things would be toned down, wouldn't be drastic. The variance would be well taken if certain things were met
Right.
of the conditions. So when I heard that the conditions that were indicated would be important were not going to be met, then I kind of refocused on the case myself to say, well, let's forget about conditions. Is there some other way we can, a variance, not we, but in my observation, that a variance would be justified, and I kind of fell back on that, well, it can go in the backyard. If it's,
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I had a little bit of trouble finding making it fit a hardship criteria.
Yeah, and I went through the way this is typed up here, and number 4, owner's property particularly can be obviated through some other method. I mean, I had no change to that. That's I agree. That's completely accurate.
And, as far as them bringing it back, it was interesting, the bylaws that we worked on the other day talks about that, and talks about, basically says, you can't just come back. If I believe there's some language in there that says if there's been substantial changes or something like that, then it could possibly come back. So if it did come back, I would say that's probably a first case interpretation for staff to make, is whether they would accept that or not, and then I think maybe secondarily the board could maybe affirm or not support that decision. So I don't know. When I read it, I was okay with the fairly strong language in here, just because I didn't really see a justification for it.
No, I think
but we could certainly, it's within the board's.
I'd be curious to hear other feedback. That's good. That's good.
Well, I would say as a counter, and I understand where you're coming from with the changing parameters of what the intent of the construction, and yet when that night when we took testimony, it was a concrete pad and there was no additional landscaping. So from that,
that's fair.
I think this makes sense, is that's what I could take and put my hands around, even though it was fluctuating, and I was concerned of what the actual intent was because of that flux. That's what I know, is that it was a concrete pad, there was no additional landscaping, and that was it. And based on that, I think this document is, to me, I would come back and still deny that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, ultimately, that's where it landed, I guess, through testimony.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fine the way it's worded. One of the changes to the minutes was to note, because we asked him the question, the applicant, whether he was submitting additional materials, and he declined to submit additional
That's
materials.
right.
So I'm comfortable that that declination is in the minutes now. And to kind of address your situation, so based on what we had in front of us, it was, as Steve said, it's a concrete pad, no landscaping, not exact dimension, not exact location.
Yeah, based on that, wood and drastic come into play. Now, that's fair, it's a good discussion, and then even just them reapplying, if there's something in the bylaws that says, if there is substantial changes, where they come back with a different surface, a smaller size, trees around it, whatever, then it's up to staff to decide if it should be resubmitted. And I think stronger language here, that's what I kept struggling with today as I was reading this, because I think stronger language here is better. But I was just thinking about how the case meandered from December to this, and just trying to make sure we had the spirit of that. But through the minutes and through the bylaws, I think it's captured, so appreciate the feedback. I'm good with the way it's written.
Well, I think what we were looking for was a collaboration in getting the variance to work. And what we were met with was a lack of collaboration. If they were collaborative and moved towards that, would we be willing to look at it again? And for me, I would, because that's what we were looking for before.
That's a good point.
Again, staff
Right.
choice.
Right.
What stronger wording were you thinking about?
No, I was, my initial kind of poke at this thing today was to soften the wording, actually. So I was going to go with more, say, for example, the variance is substantial. Well, it's potentially substantial because in reality, he didn't deliver the plans that we had asked him back in December, definitive plans, because they changed. And to Mr. Haber's point, he did, under testimony, tell us no landscaping, concrete pad. So it did fall to a final plan that we ultimately decided was not a good idea. And because there was some ambiguity in his plans regarding the size, there was no drawing provided, I had concerns with that in addition to his testimony. So I was actually going to go almost a little softer and just kind of, but no, I think stronger language here and then backed up with minutes, I guess this discussion potentially, and the bylaws, I think takes care of the case. I mean, I'm good where we are.
Well, and then, we also have the little problem of, the first sentence of 1, 2, 3, and 4 is right out of the cases that establish the standards, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
We could probably vary the second sentences, but maybe not the firsts in terms of our findings.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the other thing is, that's, I guess, hit on initially is, it's up to us to decide what's substantial. That's what my whole point was, that he didn't really ever give us the plan. I just wanted that noted, and through minutes and through bylaws, it's all taken care of. So I'm clean. No, I appreciate the discussion. It's good feedback.
From a legal standpoint, he could come back and say, I'm willing to put some trees in, and he pays another administrative
Sure.
fee to request that he become new variance. I think, is that right?
That's subject to debate, actually, whether they can just come back and make a few little changes and stuff. But I think we should probably just leave the discussion up among the active board members. Sorry, Mr. Hayes, although your points are well taken, so.
Well, Mr. Chair, regarding case 24-2013 BZA, I move that we deny and journalize the case as presented.
Okay, we have a motion for denial and journalization of that as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Further discussion? Roll call.
Steve Haber,
Aye.
Brian Sanders,
Aye.
Rick Oberschmidt,
No.
Brian Johnson,
Abstain.
Brian Ellis.
Aye. And I'll invite Mr. Hayes back up.
Perfect.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you.
All right, so we have the case we heard this evening, 3/2014, to journalize, and so it's up on the screen. Let's take a look. Good night.
So I will have to make some changes to accommodate Steve's motion.
We need to have a quick break.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a short recess.
Yes. Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it.
I tried to incorporate the comprehensive plan stuff, Rick, but you might tweak it.
All right, we're back in session, and
That's on TV.
Just exciting.
and we'll be reviewing this draft resolution for a moment.
Not well. Just too much.
Yeah, after number 1, we get rid of the word "that." Thanks.
I might just an add-on on number 1 that we just, besides that it, on the not substantial part, besides that it's matching, that there's, it's, I'm not quite sure how to say it, but there's adequate room on the lot to accept the addition without it encroaching on the surrounding properties. I like that, yes.
I'm ready to skip down to the next
Yep.
section.
We move it down a little. Okay. Anybody have any other comments on that?
What else is at the end there?
Can you see the very end there? Sorry.
Boilerplate.
The boilerplate, okay.
Doesn't hurt to check it over, just to be sure. Somebody like to make a motion to approve and journalize?
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board approve and journalize the case 3-2014 BZA as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call?
Steve Haber,
Aye.
Fred Hayes,
Aye.
Rick Oberschmidt,
Aye.
Brian Johnson,
Aye.
Brian Howell.
Aye. Okay, that ends the business for this evening. Anything else from the board? Comments? Do we have any cases for next month that we know of?
I anticipate one coming up, but our deadline is not until next Friday.
Okay, so stand by. Okay, we're adjourned. So we'll